Catholic priest warns, undeclared war on the Catholic Church? Fr Mwema's warning shakes Zambia. When a Catholic priest uses the word war, the nation must pause. Fr Mwema now says there is an undeclared war against the Catholic Church in Zambia. Is this rhetoric, or a warning? Are church leaders being silenced, or is the church entering dangerous political territory? Tonight, we unpack the facts, the statements, and the consequences. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. I hope you're all doing well this Saturday. It's been quite a week across the continent, and today we're bringing you something that has sent shockwaves through Zambia's religious and political landscape. Our lead story today: a Catholic priest stands before his congregation and declares that an undeclared war is being waged against the Catholic Church in Zambia. But who is the enemy? And what battlefield are we talking about? Picture this: the sanctuary lights dim slightly as Fr Mwema steps to the pulpit. His voice, usually calm and measured, carries an edge of urgency. The faithful lean forward in their pews. What he's about to say will reverberate far beyond these church walls, reaching the highest corridors of power in Lusaka. Is this a man of God speaking truth to power? Or is this religious paranoia in an increasingly polarized nation? When a priest uses the language of warfare to describe the relationship between church and state, what battles has he witnessed? What wounds has the church sustained? And here's the question that has Zambia talking: if there truly is an undeclared war, who fired the first shot? What does victory look like? And what will be left standing when the dust settles? Can a nation built on Christian values turn its back on one of its oldest institutions? Or is something more sinister at play? A calculated campaign to silence moral voices that refuse to bend to political winds? The answers may be more disturbing than you think. Factual foundation, background and timeline. The revelation came to light during a Sunday Mass at a Catholic parish in Zambia, where Fr Mwema delivered what many are calling one of the most politically charged homilies in recent memory. Fr Mwema, a Catholic priest known for his outspoken commentary on social justice issues, took to the pulpit in late December 2025. The context is crucial here. Zambia has been experiencing heightened tensions between religious institutions and the government over issues ranging from governance accountability to human rights concerns. The Catholic Church in Zambia has a long and storied history. Since the colonial era, it has been deeply embedded in the country's social fabric, operating schools, hospitals, and charitable organizations across all 10 provinces. The Church has also historically played the role of moral compass, speaking out during times of political crisis, from the one-party state era to the democratic transition of the 1990s. But in recent months, something shifted. Church leaders began noticing a pattern. Permits for church events delayed without explanation, critical church-run media outlets facing regulatory scrutiny, and what some described as a conspicuous absence of church representatives from national dialogues where they were once prominent voices. Then came the catalyst. In mid-December 2025, the Zambian government announced new regulations affecting religious broadcasting and foreign funding for religious organizations. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of Zambia issued a measured statement expressing concern. That statement was largely ignored by mainstream media. It was against this backdrop that Fr Mwema decided he could no longer remain silent. On that fateful Sunday, he didn't just preach a sermon. He issued a warning that would dominate national conversation for weeks to come. Direct evidence, quotes and testimony. Fr Mwema began his homily with a reading from the Gospel, but his transition to contemporary issues was swift and unmistakable. "Brothers and sisters," he said, his voice steady but resolute, "I speak to you today not just as your priest, but as a witness to what is happening in our beloved nation. There is an undeclared war being waged against the Catholic Church in Zambia." The congregation, according to witnesses, fell into absolute silence. He continued, "You might ask, Father, what do you mean by war? War is not always fought with guns and bullets. Sometimes it is fought with policies designed to weaken, with regulations meant to silence, with exclusions intended to marginalize. And that, my dear faithful, is exactly what we are experiencing." Fr Mwema then laid out what he called the evidence. When we speak about corruption, we are labeled as political. When we advocate for the poor, we are accused of inciting division. When we question policies that harm the vulnerable, we are told to stay in our lane, to concern ourselves only with spiritual matters. But tell me, since when did Jesus Christ stay silent about injustice? Since when did the prophets avoid speaking truth to kings? He grew more impassioned. They want a church that will bless their programs without question. They want priests who will pray for their success but never challenge their methods. They want a Catholic Church that is Catholic in name only, stripped of its prophetic voice, its moral authority, its commitment to truth. One parishioner who was present that day, speaking to local media on condition of anonymity, recalled, "Father Mwema then, he paused for what felt like a long time. Then he said something that really struck me. He said, if we remain silent now, history will judge us. Our children will ask us, where was the church when the nation needed moral guidance? And we will have no answer." Father Mwema addressed specific incidents. 3 weeks ago, our application for a national youth conference was denied. No proper explanation given. 2 weeks ago, a directive came suggesting that homilies should not address political matters. Friends, everything is political when it affects how people live, how they eat, how they are governed. He concluded with a direct appeal. I am not calling for rebellion. I am not calling for disobedience to legitimate authority. But I am calling for the church to be the church. To speak when speaking is needed. To act when action is required. And to never ever trade our prophetic mission for political favor or temporary peace. The homily lasted 45 minutes. By the time Father Mwema finished, the video of his sermon was already being shared on WhatsApp groups across Zambia. Deeper analysis, implications and reactions. Father Mwema's warning has ignited a fierce national debate about the role of religion in Zambian public life, and the responses have been as divided as they are passionate. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of Zambia released a carefully worded statement 3 days after the sermon. While not explicitly endorsing Father Mwema's language of war, they acknowledged growing concerns about the space for religious voices in national discourse and called for dialogue between church and state. Some interpret this as tacit support, others see it as ecclesiastical caution. From the political sphere, reactions were swift. The ruling party's spokesperson dismissed Father Mwema's claims as unfounded and inflammatory, stating, "The government of Zambia respects religious freedom and has done nothing to undermine any church. We welcome constructive criticism, but we reject baseless accusations of persecution." However, opposition politicians seized on the priest's words. One MP from the main opposition party stated, "Father Mwema has simply articulated what many of us have observed. There is a systematic attempt to co-opt or marginalize institutions that refuse to rubber-stamp government actions. The church is not the only target. Civil society, independent media, and the judiciary have all felt this pressure." Legal analysts point to a constitutional ambiguity at the heart of this controversy. Zambia's constitution declares it a Christian nation, but simultaneously guarantees separation of church and state. Professor Mutal Chanda, a constitutional law expert at the University of Zambia, notes, this dual commitment creates tension. How Christian should governance be? And when churches speak on policy, are they exercising their prophetic role or overstepping into politics? These questions have never been definitively answered. The new regulations on religious broadcasting and foreign funding, the immediate trigger for current tensions, ostensibly aim to prevent foreign interference and ensure national security. But critics argue the language is vague enough to be weaponized against any religious organization that becomes inconvenient. What's particularly striking is the generational divide in reactions. Younger Zambians on social media are split. Some praise Father Mwema for courage, finally, a priest who isn't afraid to speak truth. Others accuse him of seeking attention. The church should focus on souls, not politics. Older Zambians, who remember the Catholic Church's role in challenging authoritarian rule in the 1980s and early 1990s, see echoes of history. As one elderly parishioner put it, we've been here before. When the church stays silent, everyone suffers. Father Mwema is doing what must be done. There's also an ecumenical dimension. Leaders from other Christian denominations have been noticeably quiet, leading to speculation about whether they share the Catholic Church's concerns or fear becoming targets themselves if they speak up. Perhaps most troubling is the unanswered question: is Fr Mwema correct? Is there truly a coordinated effort to sideline the Catholic Church, or is this a case of institutional anxiety misreading normal regulatory processes? The government has provided no detailed rebuttal, only blanket denials. The Church has provided anecdotal evidence, but not a comprehensive dossier. What we're witnessing may be less about facts and more about perception, and in public discourse, perception often becomes reality. Thank you so much for watching today's edition of InspirAfrica Official. This story is far from over. Fr Mwema's warning has opened a conversation that Zambia desperately needs to have. What is the proper relationship between religious institutions and the state in a democratic, Christian nation? Can the Church be both patriotic and prophetic? And when should believers prioritize their faith over their politics, or vice versa? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Fr Mwema is right to speak out? Or should the Church stay out of political matters? Are you from Zambia, or have you observed similar tensions between church and state in your own country? Your perspective matters, and this is exactly the kind of conversation we need to be having across Africa. We'll continue following this story closely, and you can count on InspirAfrica to bring you updates as they develop. Because stories like this, stories about faith, power, and the courage to speak, these are the stories that define who we are and who we want to become. Until tomorrow, this is Nakash saying, stay informed, stay inspired, and keep asking the hard questions. God bless.